He saved Apache woman from snakebite, but her sisters said he must prove himself worthy to marry her. The sun was sinking behind the red mesas of the Arizona Territory when the lone rancher, Luke Marston, guided his horse along a narrow creek bed. He'd spent the whole day searching for missing cattle, but instead, fate led him to a moment he could never have prepared for. The sound that stopped him was a cry, sharp, sudden, and filled with pain. Luke jumped from his saddle, sprinting toward the sound when he found a young Apache woman collapsed beside the water, clutching her leg. A rattlesnake slithered away through the brush, its warning tail fading into silence. The young woman struggled to stay upright, breathing hard. She wore traditional buckskin, decorated with hand-stitched beadwork, and her long dark hair fell across her shoulder. Though she tried to stand, the venom had already weakened her. Luke dropped beside her, speaking calmly, letting her know he meant no harm. He cut the skin near the bite, doing his best to slow the spread of venom, then lifted her carefully, carrying her toward an Apache camp he spotted nearby. When he entered the camp with her in his arms, spears and bows were immediately raised. 3 Apache women stepped forward, the injured woman's sisters. Their expressions sharpened when they saw her condition, then shifted to shock as they realized the rancher had saved her life. The eldest sister, Takala, examined the wound, then looked up at him with a mixture of suspicion and gratitude. It was clear she didn't trust outsiders, especially cowboys, yet she couldn't deny he had done something honorable. Luke tried to leave after handing her over, but Takala stopped him. She told him the young woman, Nayeli, had whispered his name before fainting. She wanted him to stay until she recovered. Her sisters exchanged glances, and though none said it aloud, they knew the old tribal laws. Anyone who saved a family member's life must be acknowledged, and sometimes even considered for joining the family. Luke didn't understand the weight of what he had stepped into, but the clan surely did. That night, Luke sat outside their main lodge, uneasy but respectful. While he waited, the sisters discussed him, his bravery, his risk, his intentions. They had seen settlers cause suffering before, but this man had acted differently. Something in his face and his steady voice convinced Nayeli that he meant no harm. When she awoke, weak but safe, her first question was whether the rancher was still there. Her sisters took note. At dawn, the tribal healer arrived. He treated Nayeli with herbs and chants, and though she would live, she would need days to fully recover. Until then, Luke remained an outsider waiting for judgment, surrounded by a people who had every reason to distrust him. Yet each passing hour only strengthened the impression that he was not like others. He helped the tribe gather water, tended the horses, and offered his skills without asking for anything in return. Children watched him with curiosity. Elders observed him, in silence. Finally, when Nayeli could stand again, she asked to speak to her sisters privately. She told them what she felt, that Luke had not only saved her life, he had treated her with respect and dignity when she was most vulnerable. She believed he should be allowed to leave safely. But Takala believed otherwise. A story had begun spreading through the camp. Nayeli's eyes softened when she spoke his name. Whether it was gratitude or something deeper, the sisters debated. Their people had traditions and they intended to honor them. At last, the decision was made. The moment Luke stepped into the open, Takala declared their verdict. You saved our sister. That debt must be honored. If you wish to leave freely, or even stand beside her again, you must prove that you are worthy. Luke stood silent, confused but calm while the entire camp turned to watch. The eldest sister explained that he would have to complete a trial, not of violence, but of character, a test of endurance, honor, and selflessness. Only then could they determine what kind of man he truly was. Luke didn't hesitate. He wasn't sure where this would lead, but he knew one thing. If proving himself meant showing respect to this community and the woman whose life he saved, he would face whatever challenge they set before him. The morning sun rose over the jagged desert horizon, casting long shadows over the Apache camp as Luke Marston stood facing the sisters who had quietly become his judges. A quiet tension hung in the air. The clan gathered around the old dance circle, waiting to witness whether this outsider would prove himself or be sent away in disgrace. Takala, the eldest sister, stepped forward with the authority of someone whose word shaped the direction of the tribe. She explained that the test would not be a contest of fighting or brute strength. Those were common among men. This was about courage, endurance, humility, and the willingness to protect others without seeking reward. Luke nodded, accepting whatever would come. The sisters led him deep into the rocky canyons where the first trial waited. A long ascent up Red Mesa to collect rare healing herbs that only grew at the cliff's edge. The path was steep and loose, the sun relentless, and the rocks crumbled under every step. But Luke pushed forward, scraping his hands, bleeding from the jagged stone edge, all while resisting the fatigue pulling on his muscles. When he returned hours later, covered in dust and sweat, he placed the herbs respectfully at Takala's feet. She noted the determination in his eyes, not the pride of victory, but the sincerity of someone who simply wanted to do what was right. The second trial was one he didn't expect. Chenoa, the middle sister, brought him to the horse corral where a young wild mustang, one the tribe had failed to tame, snorted and stomped with fierce energy. Luke was told he didn't need to ride the horse, only to calm it. The people wanted to see whether he possessed gentleness, not domination. Luke approached slowly, speaking softly, hands lowered, giving the mustang respect instead of fear. Hours passed as he moved gradually, patiently earning the creature's trust. When the mustang finally allowed him to touch its neck, the watching elders murmured in genuine surprise. Chenoa, who had been the most doubtful, found her stance softening. She exchanged glances with her younger sister, noticing how Nayeli's eyes followed Luke, filled with a quiet gratitude she hadn't expressed aloud. The final trial came at sunset. The sky blazed in orange and red as Takala led Luke to an old ceremonial ground, a circle marked by stones placed generations ago. There, she told him the truth. This test wasn't really about marriage or courtship. It was about understanding responsibility. A man's worth is measured by how he protects those who depend on him, she said. So his final task was to stand watch alone, through the entire night at the canyon pass, guarding the camp from predators and scouting for danger. The tribe remained in the distance, unseen but observing whether he would falter. Hours turned cold, then colder. Coyotes howled. Wind whipped through the sagebrush. Luke's eyes burned with exhaustion, yet he did not sit, did not sleep, did not abandon his post. When dawn finally painted the land gold again, he was still standing, weak-legged, drained, but steady. The sisters approached silently. Traditionally, they would announce his success or failure immediately. But this time they hesitated. It was Nayeli who stepped forward first. Her leg still bore the faint mark of the snake bite, but she walked with more strength now. She looked at Luke with a mixture of gratitude and unfamiliar warmth, then spoke softly. "You have risked your life twice for me. No trial can measure what you have already shown." Her voice wasn't romantic or dramatic, it was honest. Takala and Chenoa exchanged long looks, and after a moment, Takala finally spoke. She declared that Luke had passed every test, not because he was strong, but because he was respectful, honorable, and willing to endure hardship for people who were not his own. She told him he was free to leave their land with their blessing. But then the unexpected happened. Nayeli stepped closer to him, her sisters watching quietly. She told Luke he was not obligated to stay, not bound by their customs. Yet if he wished, he could remain for a time, not as a prisoner or an outsider, but as a friend who had earned a place among them. Luke felt something shift inside him. He had not come seeking anything, yet he found trust, respect, and a purpose he didn't know he'd been missing. He agreed to stay for a few more days so Nayeli could fully recover. Over the next sunrise and sunset, he helped the clan gather food, repaired fences, and laughed with the children who once feared him. The sisters watched quietly from a distance, realizing that maybe the ancient customs had guided them well. The bond forming between the rancher and the woman he'd saved was not forced, it was simply human. When Luke finally prepared to leave, he looked back at the camp and at Nayeli, who stood watching him with a calm, hopeful expression. He promised he would return, not because duty demanded it, but because he wanted to. As he rode back across the desert, the wind carrying the scent of summer rain and the sound of distant drums, he felt the weight of the trials behind him, but also the beginning of a new path ahead, a path shaped by honor, courage, and the unexpected connections that change a man's destiny. And to everyone watching this story, remember, tales like this continue only when voices like yours stay with them. So if you enjoyed this journey through the Wild West, its bravery, its heart, and its unforgettable characters, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next chapter of adventure.